Welcome to the Friday Power Lunch, a weekly show amplifying the voices of the Virginia grassroots. Each week, we provide engaging conversations about politics, culture, and women making change. Produced by the unstoppable women of Network Nova, our motto is, when we vote, we win. The Friday Power Lunch is recorded before a live Zoom audience. Follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and show us some love and become a sponsor through Patreon. The Friday Power Lunch. Badass women getting things done. Live from Network Nova Live, you are on the Friday Power Lunch. And yes, it is September 13th. Hard to believe, but we are so many. Oh gosh, early vote starts this week, so we're excited about that as well. And I'm your host, Katherine White, bringing you the guests, the issues, the action, and we love to fuel the grassroots in this community. It's so great you're here with us across Virginia and coast to coast, because we like to get things done and we make politics fun. So we're so glad you're here. Hope you're comfy. Today's theme is every vote counts, and how are we going to make sure that counts? We have voter recipes that work, and we are really celebrating the creative today. So I'm excited that we have a great lineup. Michele Hornish is here. Hello, Michele. Welcome. Lawyer, communications consultant, strategist, executive director of Every State Blue, and founder of Small Deeds Done. And Reid's here. Welcome, Reid. He was at the Women's Summit. Everybody remembers Reid. Even my sister today was telling me, I remember Reid from the Women's Summit, and you're the program outreach director, Progressive Turnout Project. And we're so excited to have you back in the room. And of course, congressional candidate Ken Mitchell in CD6. We're going to learn about why, I wanted to have a candidate on, one to highlight our candidates that need extra love, but we want to see what this creative, when you are getting creative in your campaign, what that will bring and the energy it brings to it. So we want to celebrate people like Jeanne Russell that's working with him as a social media manager and what she's doing to kind of spice it up for Ken. So that's exciting, and I'm so excited to get to this. So let's do our power chat, and then we'll get to our guest. Whoopsie. Hello.
Hello. How are you today?
Woo, I don't know. I think I'm okay. I feel like it's been such an exciting week, and I love your shirt. It's in our boutique. You have look at the Kamala Mamala shirt on. You're looking good. So yeah, let's talk about what's on your mind. I know we talked a little bit about the debate, and I think I think I called you that night after One Manhattan and tried to get you to go fire up Facebook Live with me. I'm like, hi, Finale, let's go Facebook Live. And you're like, oh my God, you got to hang up on me,
So yeah, I sort of forgotten it already. I was so busy that night doing stuff. It does feel like it was a lifetime away, but it was very, very exciting. And then of course we're still talking about it, but you were so excited about something that happened during the debate. And we talk about influencers all the time and how important they are at this moment. So what did you want to talk about in terms of an influencer who might have endorsed the campaign?
Well, I know let's talk about when we do this stuff about voting. And I was actually trying to comfort some family members that were worried still about this election a little bit. As we look at the data, we look at the effect and the Taylor Swift effect of that endorsement after that debate. We could see it in real numbers. So folks in the room, Tom Bonnier, Target Smart, he's our friend, and he tells us, look at that data. And what they're seeing is, did you see it? It was like 400, 500%. I heard him today talking about it. If anybody has that link of Tom talking on the news, did you see that? 500% increase in voter registration.
And see, that's what's so important, because you can just do show a picture and say, I'm going to support someone.
Yes.
But, she was really thoughtful in that message about, I've done my homework, and people listen. I've done my homework. Do your homework. And I think this is all the things that we are hearing, is that we tell people to do something. There's a call to action. So she didn't say who you should vote for, what you should do. She said, do your homework. And you know what? People are doing their homework.
Well, and, when I saw Tom Bonnier talk about it the day before, I saw the chart and it was big, on that one day. Then she was on that award show and she said it again. And she said about directly the action was the voter outreach part of it was registration. And what did he say? The effect is continued. So they're just calling it now the Swift effect. And I think that's exciting. Other people are doing this. And I'm excited today because we really want to highlight as activists and just as regular people, when we're walking around about this election, what we can do, the little things, the creative things. Michele Hornish will talk about those small deeds done and highlighting what people are doing to get super creative. And it really does make an impact.
Yeah, it really does. It's so interesting that months and months ago, we were having a conversation about, for those people who watch Sarah Jessica Parker, the show that comes on, and it was all about um, what is that machine that Big died on, and
Oh,
yeah,
yeah, the
yeah,
Peloton, the
yeah,
Peloton.
yeah, yeah, the Peloton, and the stock went down, and so we kept
Exactly.
saying, hey, if a TV show can cause
Yes.
the stock prices to go down, surely then the stories that people tell and how they tell them can make something work. And so here we have with the Swifty effect, and there'll be other things. And so this is an election where nothing's off the table. Any little thing that works, we ought to be doing.
Yeah, and I'm excited because when we talk about influencer and social media and what anybody can do is you get on TikTok and you can make. I was watching the who in the room say in the chat, did you see the North Carolina effect? Just amazing. In every town she went in North Carolina, the 3 or 4 stops she made, amazingly, how many people getting loud. We will talk about that loud and proud.
Yes, we will.
Gosh, she went loud, but people were sharing that loud and proud.
So let me tell you this funny story
Okay,
in 30 seconds. So everybody knows that Jen Kiggins is running for Congress here, and we
right.
just can't stand it. And so she has this giant sign that she has in our community as you ride through 13. So I said to my cousin, I said, every time anybody sees that sign, they ought to yell out, "No freedom!" And so we had this thing that we were driving along, and we do that. So maybe 4 or 5 days later, she's in the car with me and we're driving. I'm taking my mom to the doctor and she yells, "No freedom." Well, I almost ran off the road because I was so shocked when she said it because she was yelling in the back seat. I know. So, so
No, it's
anyway,
true. It's so funny. And I'll have to say to everybody in the room that each one of us, we can do every little small creative thing. I have my signs outside my door and I get all these strangers that come to my door now and want to talk about the election. I had a gentleman from Czechoslovakia who immigrated here now, lives here in my neighborhood. He was telling me about, I know dictators. I can't believe Americans are falling for this, right? So every little thing, it really does matter. And we'll talk about that with our guest today. But I am so excited. And who would have thunk it that we'd be talking about and cats and dogs driving out of town to I mean, just really ridiculous stuff. I mean, it's kind of funny, the memes, and then it got not funny because now it's like you're putting people in danger, right? So I just want to point that out today that I just can't believe it, but it is what it is. And I can't believe these Republicans are willing to just go on. This is what big Trump talked about on his big debate is people are eating cats and dogs. And you
yeah.
have to say that this is where we're at,
So
right?
I was just going to say that we have a large Haitian community here on the Eastern Shore.
I didn't know
And
that.
so it does feel really dangerous and it
Mhm.
feels really scary. And so this is where we get to have our voices to speak out to say that it's wrong and not to let people get away with talking about it. So we all have to speak up.
I
Yeah.
agree. And that's really what I wanted to bring up too when I say never forget, remember who we are and don't let people, you know, tell you otherwise. All right. So I know we have a great show and I want to make sure that we are ready to roll. And bringing up our first guest and Michele Hornish, and I'll let you introduce her.
Yes, yes, yes. I am so excited to have Michele Hornish. She's the executive director of Every State Blue, and she's the writer of a Substack called Small Deeds Done. And I met Michele through Jess Piper, our friend of the show, and now Michele will be a friend of the show too. And so I have to tell you, when I read your Substack, I just was blown away. And I think that we should well, I don't even know where I want to start at this point, but let's start with Every State Blue and tell us a little bit about that and why it's so important. And then we'll get to the really cool stuff in your Substack.
Okay, well, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for those kind words and for the lovely introduction. I am thrilled to be here with you and with everyone else who's on the call from all over the country. This is just fantastic. So Every State Blue, which is at everystateblue.org. Every State Blue, our mission is to crowdfund for underfunded Democratic nominees. And those are typically people who are running in what I like to call the reddest, roughest, toughest places in the country. We have 3 state projects. We have Blue Missouri, Blue Ohio, and Blue Tennessee. And then we have a national project with Forgotten Democrats that crowdfunds for underfunded Democratic nominees for Congress. So what we're doing there is we're filling people's buckets up from the bottom up. To my knowledge, we're the only organization that funds first those nominees that have the least. So we actually look for the people who have had a difficult time fundraising on their own. And then our community, which is a group of monthly donors, we crowdfund and then we fill those buckets up. So in Missouri, for example, we just sent out checks totaling over $170,000, making sure that no nominee in Missouri has less than $6,000 to run their campaign, which is truly game-changing for a lot of people who are running for state legislature, for state house, or for state senate. In Ohio, we sent out checks totaling over $335,000, making sure that no Democratic nominee for Ohio state legislature has less than $11,000. And that is all due to a community of people, a group of people, grassroots folks like us, who donate a little bit every month. And then, we distribute it at the end. And so it's very much in keeping with this idea that we all have something that we can do, that chipping in a little bit, these small actions taken on a regular basis by all these people that care, has the potential to really, really make a difference. So that's our mission. That's our theory of change. That's how we're trying to change the world.
I love it. And the reason why I love it so much is you don't have to be part of a rural community, which I actually happen to be in Missouri. You are very familiar with that too. But when you hear someone say, the forgotten Democrats, it sounds so sad. And it feels like when we always hear people say, let's focus on the elections that matter. And I get that. I really, really do. But it crushes my soul because every election matters. Because what you're essentially saying is that there are some Democrats who matter way more than others. And so I would love to see us change the language on that to say, no, here's what we need to do, because there are diminishing returns in terms of just funding and funding and funding. And then you have all of these other places where I am part of the Howard Dean School that says you have a 50-state strategy. So can we just talk a little bit about how you guys think that at the end of the day, these small Ds, these Every State Blue, that it starts to matter?
Sure. So there's all kinds of evidence that shows that actually funding races, running people everywhere and funding races everywhere helps everyone. It helps Democrats across the board. But just as you were saying, there's oftentimes this statement by Democrats, locally and nationally, that we need to fund the races that matter. Every race matters. Every voter matters, right? And for people who are running statewide, they need votes in rural areas as much as they need votes in urban areas. And Democrats traditionally have had a difficult time over the last few cycles, I'd say the last few decades, pushing into rural spaces. We know that we've left those areas uncontested in a lot of states and in a lot of congressional districts as well. And we need to be pushing into those places. But the question is, how do we do that effectively? That's what we're answering. That's the gap that we are filling, is we're creating these grassroots communities that are filling that gap, making sure that there's support system available for the people who are willing to run. It makes it easier to find people to run. It makes it easier for them to then get out voters. I mentioned that there's an electoral benefit, and there really is. We know that running someone in a district leads to a 1.5% vote share increase for the top of the ticket. So just imagine how many door knocks that is, right? So that's a huge benefit. 1.5% vote share increase for the top of the ticket just by having somebody on the ballot. But funding them matters too. When we fund these challengers at 36 cents per eligible voter, then we get a turnout increase of 1%. And that's huge too, right? We do so much trying to get people to turn out. We do so much trying to get that vote share at the top. We can do this very simple thing, which is running people, but then also giving them just very minimal funding so that they can get the yard signs and the gas money, and the postcards that they need in order to get the word out and to hold, what are usually the most extreme Republicans, hold them accountable.
That's exactly right. And I think I always say it's not or, it's and, because what happens is, and we can work on persuadable voters, but if you have these Democratic spaces, these blue spaces in red places, those are our people. You don't have to persuade them. You just have to let them know you care about them and need them to turn out.
That's exactly right. And, I think that oftentimes we all fall into this trap of looking at elections as binary, right? Because there's a winner and a loser, but there's a lot of progress that goes from, one space to the other. And we lose out on all that progress if we don't even try, if we don't push into those places. And we know that a lot of people who have traditionally been voting Republican actually have very progressive views. They just don't know it. There's all kinds of data on this, all sorts of studies that show that, people are voting for very progressive ballot measures, but then they're voting in, Republicans all straight down the ticket. It doesn't make sense to us until you go and start talking to those people and realize that they don't realize what Democrats stand for because they haven't seen one in their own community. Their district hasn't been contested or hasn't been meaningfully contested or supported in a really long time. And we can all work together and fix that. Like in Ohio, where our grassroots community is one of the largest donors in Ohio politics, with $337,000 that we have distributed all over the state. I mean, the map of our impact covers almost the entire state. We've sent out funding to 56 Democratic nominees, which is tremendous considering they have 99 state house districts. So over half we have funded. And that ends up meaning that those folks can then get the word out about their campaign, about Democratic messages, about Sherrod Brown, about all of these different things. And we're able to really make some noise as a grassroots community. So we can go toe to toe with the biggest donors in Ohio politics as a grassroots community of 1,000 people. That's not that many people. Right? 1,000 people donating a few dollars a month. And this is what you end up with at the end of a 2-year cycle. It really is tremendous. And it's a great way for all of us to make our voices heard.
That's right. In those small D's, a little bit adds up to a lot. And so I'm talking to Michele Hornish from Every State Blue and also the Substack Small D's Done. And I want to talk about two things in the time that we have left. One, you are from Missouri. So I want to talk about Missouri, and I want to talk about the ballot issue that you all had and what happened. And interestingly enough, when you wrote this article, it hadn't been done yet. And so I want to talk about that, but then I want to weave it into the article because it was a very powerful article.
So yes, as a background for anyone who didn't see this, it did make the national news. But Amendment 3, which would overturn the abortion ban in Missouri, which is one of the most extreme in the country. In fact, our Attorney General at the time, who's now our U.S. Senator Eric Schmidt, he ran, and as I describe it, his slippery office shoes. He literally ran down the hallways in order to implement this trigger ban that was one of the most extreme in the country. So Amendment 3 would overturn that ban. And the Secretary of State is an anti-abortion activist himself. And when we were getting signatures, when we, put this petition, it's a petition to change the Missouri Constitution. And when we went to gather signatures, he compressed the time frame. Normally, it's like a year that people have. He compressed the time frame intentionally so that we had 90 days. We needed to get 180 signatures in 6 of 8 congressional districts, and we turned in 380,000.
which is pretty amazing.
Which is
Amazing.
incredible. Yes. But then on Friday night, last Friday, Judge Christopher Limbaugh, who is the cousin of Rush Limbaugh, he created a new standard for petitions to change the Constitution, and then said that this petition did not meet that new standard. And then, tried to kick it off the ballot. The Secretary of State then also tried to kick it off the ballot. But luckily enough, on Tuesday, the Missouri Supreme Court said, not this time. And they put it back on the ballot. They overturned Judge Limbaugh, and now we're in a good place going forward. And I will say that it has energized people even more than before.
So,
So we
so that's really pretty awesome. And so that gets to, this the Substack that you wrote, and when I actually saw what work happens when small deeds happen. And I will say, for anybody, if you have not seen the Substack and you haven't read it, you should read it. It's really, really powerful. The stories are powerful when I read it. And you talked about the story in Penzies, which I ordered, so you can know that I did my deed. I ordered from Penzies. So I got some seasoning, I got some spicy, so Penzies. So I ordered, so that's good. I probably pronounced that wrong, but I ordered. And but I wanted to talk about the deed that you guys did when you gave money to a candidate. So I want hold on to the picture, Robbin. But what I want you to do is tell us how much money you gave to this candidate, and then we'll talk about how she responded.
Sure. So the candidate is Laura Schaefer in Ohio. And I called her to tell her that we were sending her a check for a little over $6,000. I think it was $6,052.
And she was very excited.
She was very excited. She was outside at the time. It was a beautiful night, and she was outside. It was after dinner, and she was catching frogs with her kids. And so she just sort of blurted out, I'm outside catching frogs with my children. And I don't think that she intended to say that, but it was just this really lovely, moment where she was so surprised that a community of people were going to reach out to someone who's running in a very red district, that hasn't been meaningfully contested for a long time. It meant a lot to her that we were reaching out and saying, here's a little bit of money for you to get on your way. Now get going.
So here's a little bit of money for you to get on your way. And so we're thinking about, these deeds and creativity in terms of how you think about how you use your money. So Ken Mitchell, I know you're watching this. So Robbin, show us what she did with her money.
This is Laura's bus. Yeah.
It was the best thing I've ever seen. So tell us a little bit about what she's done with this bus.
So Laura is an incredible, incredible candidate. And as you can tell, she's very creative. So she took some of the money that Blue Ohio sent her, and she painted this bus into a beautiful shade of blue, I think. And then on the side, she added her name, Laura Schaefer, state representative. And she keeps on this bus quite a bit of the campaign materials that she needs. So she takes this bus everywhere. She drives it to work. She drives it home from work. She drives it when she goes out canvassing. She drives it around the fair, multiple times around the fair. She parks it, in areas of town that are particularly well traveled. So she parks it in front of other friends' businesses, and she's really, really creative about where she leaves it. And now when she goes and canvasses, and of course she takes the bus with her canvassing and she parks it at a spot in the neighborhood so that everybody knows that she's there. But when she knocks on doors now, people say, "Oh, I've heard of you. I've heard of you. You're the one with the bus."
Isn't that amazing? So I just love this story. So Michele Hornish from Every State Blue, Small D's Done. Thank you so much for joining us today. I just have to tell you, this is just phenomenal. I did ask my husband for a bus. He did say no, but I'm not going to give up after one try.
We should all have a bus. I really think that we should all be driving buses for democracy around the country. I think we should make it happen.
I agree. Thank you so much. And I hope you'll stay with us for the after chat.
I absolutely will. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Oh my goodness, this is fantastic. So now we're going to just keep right on going. So I'm going to bring up Reid McCollum from Progressive Turnout Project. Hi, Reid. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing really well, and I'm inspired about blue buses and everything that Michele shared. It's just so exciting to hear about that organization and all the great work.
I know you on a bus now too, right? Yeah, I know. Who doesn't? So, but you are doing some very, very exciting work too with Progressive Turnout Project. And so I want you to tell everybody what is happening. And we're not going to say the states that matter, but we're going to say some very important states. And you guys are doing some amazing work. So tell us about what's happening with Progressive Turnout Project.
Well, similar to how Michele shared that rural areas and especially red areas don't get the investment that would be cost effective to help Democrats everywhere, all of the what I'll call direct voter contact gets underfunded. So that's really everything that's not just advertising. So our organization has been around for 9 years, but we were founded out of frustration that just so much money gets spent on TV ads in major cities and not enough on actually reaching out and connecting with voters. So we do door-to-door canvassing, relational organizing, fund field organizers on competitive state and federal races across the country, and have the largest volunteer postcard writing program in human history. Overall, we're going to pay 40,000 people to help get out the vote as contractors, which is the biggest field operation of people that are paid and compensated for that work than any campaign, including the Harris campaign, in the country. So door-to-door canvassing is our bread and butter. If people have written with postcards to swing states, we've had folks write 80 million handwritten postcards since 2020. And we've got some exciting door knocking programs in the swing states this year.
So, so 80, did you say 80 million postcards?
Since 2020, yeah.
There's a lot of postcards. And we believe in postcards. So that's pretty phenomenal. But I want to talk a little bit about the door knocking because people can really feel a little hesitant about door knocking. It can be really, really a little scary, a little creepy, right? So you got a film that you can sort of make us come to ease about how that feels. Robbin, can you help us with that?
In a world that seems peaceful and quiet, you will face your darkest fears. Whatever you do, don't look behind you.
Oh, it's just the mailman.
In a town where something isn't quite right. When you're all alone.
You know this is concrete, right?
Things will never be.
Come on, I'm just knocking doors. It's not that scary.
Well, it's a little scary.
Sure, I was nervous at first, but now I got this.
But
we'll show you how it's done.
We've been volunteering for 15 years. Talking to voters is how we win.
Talking to people and getting fresh air feels great.
The training took, 30 minutes? And then we were ready to go. You'll get a script and whatever materials you need.
You'll keep track of everything on an app on your phone, and it's really easy to use. You'll go to specific homes on a list where we know that most voters are Democrats, but they may need a nudge to actually go vote.
So many elections come down to just a few votes. Just asking them if they made a plan is so important. It really does make them more likely to vote.
A lot of potential voters need that personal connection to get past all the noise and negativity.
Most folks are just busy and don't follow politics every day. Showing up and getting to think about voting is sometimes all that it takes.
An older woman told me that she was going to vote because I showed up at her door. No one ever knocked her door before.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people are kind of scared or intimidated by it, but it's way easier than I thought. You don't need to be a policy expert or anything. It's just about making sure Democrats know when they plan to vote and giving them the right info.
And if you do run into a Republican, they're usually nice and just tell you. And that data helps us know who's who. And then you don't have to go back to that house.
I don't want to wake up the day after the election and wish I did more.
I never thought I'd knock doors. But I ask myself, am I doing everything I can to fight for my values?
Following the polls just makes you feel helpless. The polls don't vote. It's what we do that matters.
Because I know that every time that I get out to knock doors, we get a few more votes, and it really adds up.
If I'm concerned about what's going on, if I really believe that democracy is under attack, I need to step up. So I did.
I signed up. Come join us.
We said yes.
Knocking doors is one of the most important things I've ever done.
Join us.
So Reid, I love that so much. So talk a little bit more about extra incentives to get people to go knock doors, because you might not live in any of these places, but could get kind of expensive to get there. So what else can happen?
Well, I mean, we want to make it as easy and as accessible for people as possible. And a lot of that is overcoming that initial sort of fear and nervousness. So, I mean, that's why we made this video. And it's not about our particular door knocking program. It's really to inspire people, no matter where they live, to overcome that initial fear and get out there and give it a try. And that's the biggest hurdle. A lot of people would rather have dental work than knock doors if they've never done it before. But it is something, it's like my favorite activity. I've knocked over 12,000 doors. And you just get addicted to it. It's not going to be for everybody. So that's why we do things like postcards, and it's not either or. People can do both. Just like you said, it's yes and. So we have a flexible door knocking program that is, you can do it any day of the week, anytime you have a window, and you get paid to do it. It's $125 for every list of doors that you knock. And we do that in Pennsylvania, North Carolina, which are the closest to Virginia, but also Georgia, Arizona, Michigan, and Wisconsin. And it's as flexible as like driving for Uber, but door knocking. So there's a really cool map where you can decide where you're going to go. And the training's all virtual. We lean into the fact that everybody became comfortable with Zoom and Google Meet. You know, the one thing we got out of the pandemic that didn't suck was the comfort with virtual meetings. And, you know, if the thing that sort of resonates with me most is that if people just realize the impact that they could have, especially in a swing state, but just really anywhere out there on the doors, is, you know, if you knock doors for 2 hours, you'll have about 14 conversations and you'll add a vote. And so we need a lot of people knocking a lot of doors, but it is game changing. And the video really shows you why it's effective and why it's not that hard. Because just making a plan to vote with somebody and making sure that you show up and just let them know their options. And then for a Get Out the Vote program, you're talking to people that if they vote are very likely to vote for Democrats. So it is really easy and accessible and for anybody. And I'll throw into the chat the program website. And then also I lead info sessions like 3 to 4 days a week where people can learn about the program in more detail, how it works, ask questions. But for now, you helped MC an event that Network Nova co-sponsored back in August that was all about people who don't live in swing states giving a week of their time or just any amount of time that they have to come help and knock doors, so that we don't, you know, wake up on November 6th and realize we lost Pennsylvania as the tipping point state by 30,000 votes or something like that. So
yeah, that's absolutely right. I'm talking to Reid McCollum from Progressive Turnout Project. Reid, what do you want to say in conclusion in terms of how exciting this is? And I ask you how it's been working, especially in North Carolina and Georgia, 2 states that I'm really interested in hearing about.
Well, I mean, we got 52 and a half days left, and I think everybody needs to leave it all on the field and spend every ounce of time that you have doing whatever you're able to do to make a difference for not just the Harris campaign and major campaigns in swing states, but in places like Missouri, Ohio, red areas. It's you know, I think of like it's like Star Wars and we're fighting the Empire here. So
yeah,
that's my mindset.
I agree. Reid McCollum from Progressive Turnout Project. I hope you can stay for the after chat. I know there'll be lots of questions. Thank you, Reid. Katherine.
Oh gosh, that was so good. I was just digging the bus, and I was thinking also, like, you know, how can I get a bus? So
I know. We can get a bus, Katherine. We're gonna work on that. We can get a bus.
We have talked about a bus, so we know that this is on our mind. But I want to go back. So excited because we've started this Do Something challenge. a couple weeks ago, we had our day one. It was find your buddy to do something good, do something challenge. And now we're on week 3 or whatever.
Yep.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about
okay. So do you want to talk about, we're going to do some really exciting stuff about challenge 2, because challenge 2, so we had challenge 1, which was to find a partner. That was your do something challenge 1, find a partner. And then challenge 2 was to talk to someone and get them committed to vote early. Right. And then the second part of that was to do this little sticky notes to put them in the bathroom to say, hey, yeah, exactly. Your vote's private, your vote is secret, vote for your daughters. We gave a little message, and we're going to talk about challenge 3 in just a minute because we'll want you to catch up. But Robbin, there is someone who did a fantastic job on challenge 2. Look at her. Tessa Nesbitt, look at you. I hope you're out there today, because when you sent your pictures in, I was so excited. And I said, she is absolutely awesome, because she's like putting them out there. She's taking our picture and she's showing you that she's getting it done. So congratulations, joyful warrior work by Tessa Nesbitt on our challenge 2. And we're going to send her something wonderful too, because
why don't we send her? Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. That Stair we'll have to think of. We have some great buttons and other things we could send her. And she's always in our after chat. So how exciting was that to see in the t-shirt doing her black job? I just thought
I love that. I just want you to I want you to know that last week Miss Margaret actually had on one of those t-shirts, and she said my black job is to vote. So I just want you to know that she's Mrs. Margaret, she's feeling it. She's keeping up with everything. Yeah. So the challenge this week, the do something challenge this week is really easy. Ooh. And I'm so excited about it. So everybody can make noise. Everybody, we can noise. Everybody can make noise. And so this week, do something challenge is to make some noise. And it's really simple. All you have to do is whatever your public square is, if it's Facebook, if it's Twitter, if it's TikTok, if it's calling your family, calling your friends, and you're going to tell them why you're voting for Vice President Kamala Harris. That is all you have to do. Easy peasy. Make some noise, tell some friends, social media, telephone, text. I don't care how you do it. But you tell them why you're voting for Vice President Harris.
Do you think there'd be a lot of people like rolling down their windows, freedom?
Yeah. Well, see, if you see kicking sign, you go, no, freedom. So it could happen. You could make some noise that way.
No, I love it, because I think we've talked about with the loud and proud is what we even centered on last year about really how important it was. And there's so much to be loud and proud about. And I do know from putting up signs in your yard, from wearing your shirts, from just talking to people, like you said, when we talk about TikTok, that's pretty exciting, because that does segue into our next guest, because what we want to really show people that this is not hard. It's not rocket science. You can just take something. You may not have the skill, but you can learn it too. And I love that we're going to talk about this.
Yes. And I wanted to say, like my shirt today, and I will tell you guys that this weekend, I was actually taking pictures of the giant Trump and kicking signs. And because I'm going to do something with it, I haven't figured it out yet. So I'm outside of my car and I'm taking pictures of the signs, and someone's yelling out at me from an apartment window. And I was like, uh-oh. But they were saying, I love your shirt. It was a Kamala shirt.
Love it. And I know I'm getting that dose of it, because every time I saw her walk out with her Converse on, I'm like, I talk about that joy of just that cheering. So keeping that with us, I'm so excited. So thank you for now. I'm going to make sure we bring up our next guest, Get Loud and Proud, and with Ken Mitchell. And Ken, great to see you back on the show again. And we are uplifting you. You're the candidate in Virginia's District 6. So let's talk about your you stepping up to run, and what you're doing in your race, and what kind of creative elements you guys have really kind of done around this.
Well, first, thanks for having me on. I've been on Network Nova a few times, and
Yes.
every time I've been on, it has just been so enjoyable. In fact, I must say that, I've evolved as a candidate from when I first started, serious about, hey, this is what I know about the issues and things. And after being on Network Nova, I thought, we need to make this a little bit lighter because they have fun and they still get stuff done. So that's kind of somewhat where we evolved to. And, we're still getting the message out. It has been just a totally different atmosphere when we went through the summer. And, I kind of refer to it as the doldrums. You're out making calls and trying to fundraise, and they're telling you 2% success rate on call time is very good. And I'm like, holy smokes, the time and energy that takes.
Yes.
And so, we've done a few things a little bit unorthodox in the campaign. Everybody will tell you who's been in campaigns and stuff, keep your money through this quarter because when they look at how much you have, they'll contribute. Well, we found out that we had to spend the money to get the name recognition out there. So, we've been out earning it and then spending it and earning it and spending it. So, so we've been a bit unorthodox in that regard. We've really taken advantage of social media. And I think when you chat with Jeanne on this thing, how creative.
Here in the room, I was looking if we could bring Jeanne up. Oh,
there she is.
I have
there
been
she is.
scouring through the what do you call it, through all the faces to see if I can find you, Jeanne.
I'm so sorry. I had trouble logging on in my computer, and I ended up having to get on it with my phone because it wasn't working.
Well,
so sorry.
What? No, don't be sorry. You're on, which is amazing, and also that you figured it out. And I want to make sure that people know about you because this is Jeanne Russell, and this is Jeanne, and she is working with Ken Mitchell, the candidate in Virginia's District 6, and she's the social media manager. But you didn't start out that way, and we had a great conversation the other day. We realized we were sisters in the fight for equality. We had been with each other, rubbing elbows through all the fight for the ERA, because I said to her, I know your gorgeous self. I've seen you around. And you told me your story, how you moved out to the rural area. You've been out there 22 years. So let's talk about how you applied your creative, badass self to Ken's campaign and how that happened.
I don't know what I'm doing anything. I'm just doing what I'm doing. But what happened was I was criticizing the campaign for not having a Twitter account.
Uh-oh.
And the next thing I know, I get a call from Kay saying, hey, can you help us out? So I started doing Twitter and Instagram, and now I'm doing all this stuff, including TikTok and
right,
everything.
So I love that because when you do complain, we always do. That's our job sometimes as activists. We point out, hey, you need to get out there, Ken. She loosens you up, right? She got you going. And I really caught sight of your TikTok. Tell us about what you've been doing on TikTok and using your creative skills, Jeanne, what you brought to the campaign.
Well, I started out on TikTok myself I was sharing these videos I had done about Project 2025, and it made me really get a lot more followers quickly. So I thought, well, I got to get Ken on here. And so we started his not that long ago, we started his account. Now he has over 1,300 followers, which I know that's not a lot, but it's, and he's getting a lot of people engaging with him on this app. And he sings and he plays the guitar, and so he's actually perfect for TikTok.
He is. And so I loved what caught my attention was this doodle you started to apply. And like you said, you had your own account, and then you started to really post on yours and then go post on his, but you do the doodles. Explain to people, like you said, when you're talking about being creative and you're just bringing your skill to this. And
Doodly is a whiteboard program. And originally I was doing it for low inflammation voters about Project 2025, which of course Ken cares about.
Yes.
And it was just like one piece at a time, very like less than a minute each. But now we've started doing it, a series called Decline the Sixth. And it points out ways that Ben Klein has voted on things. Because I think the Republicans, if they realized his voting record, they would not be voting for him. So we're trying to put out information one thing at a time on different things that he's done, reasons why you need to vote for Ken and not for Ben. So
yes, I love the decline. That's a really it's very creative. And that's
well, I don't think I thought of that. I think that was already out there because we've been trying to decline the sixth for a long time now.
Yeah, Ken, and how's it helped you when you think about where you've gotten now because of this little dose of creativity?
Oh, it has been incredible. Jeanne and I had a conversation fairly on, and, I realized her creative talent, and I said, Jeanne, you have got to just run with this. So it's not me pushing ideas to Jeanne. Jeanne is coming up with the ideas from, and she's on social media and she's getting these ideas and responses and things. And she comes back and says, hey, this would be a good idea to do this. Drive on with it. So, I have been nothing but the recipient of all of her talent and skills. And I'm just so thankful for everything Jeanne has brought to the campaign.
But she's come. I'm sorry, you've come a long way too. Yesterday, he sent me pictures of beautiful rocks that people had decorated with the Harris, Kane, and Mitchell on them. And they're putting these rocks around. They're beautiful. And they're putting them around to get the word out.
I mean, so I think it's like saying yes to a lot. And like you said, to Ken, that sometimes it is, and Finale Norton will tell you this also, not always listening to these consultants or these people, they think they know it all. And you're like, connecting with the people and being creative. And, I'm going to say to you, you are much more relaxed. And I can tell the ease in you just in the sense that you found your groove. I think your groove is on, my friend.
I think so. I think so.
And we want to support you. So I want to challenge, we talk about our Do Something Challenge today. And we saw Michele Hornish talk about these things they could do for candidates like Ken. Ken is out in CD, Virginia, the 6th, sorry. And this is a hard race, and it's also hard to raise money. So our challenge to this audience today, what I love to see us do, is follow him just simply on TikTok, if you're on TikTok, and Facebook, or on Twitter. One, it's so easy just to follow and give this campaign a boost, right, Jeanne? So
yes.
And we could put those in there. I can't remember if Kay is in the room, I think if she could put your social media links in there, we can follow. And lastly,
and I also sent them to you.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for. So I'm going to look for them and I'll put them in. Lastly, I would love for us to donate to Ken's campaign, $5, $10, $20 today, so he can buy another sign. Because I can tell you, driving down 7, those signs are so catchy. And we want to uplift you today. We know how hard it is to step up in these areas that's hard to run. So I hope everybody takes that challenge. And lastly, let's close out. Ken, what do you want to say on being creative in that voter outreach and how you're feeling today?
Well, as we look out today, with all of the lift we're getting from the Harris Walls, from Tim Kaine, we're being lifted by that as well. So, in many instances, it's simply staying on the surfboard at this point in time and continuing to get the word out, and we're starting to delve into the radio, and we're looking at getting, our funds set aside for some advertising, on the television market kind of deal towards the end of the campaign. And so right now we're just finding that, the amount of money that we need to to really run this campaign through and really lift the campaign, we're starting to get into those heavy expenditures. So every nickel we get helps. And we've just recently purchased our last purchase of signs and things. So we're really leaning into digital advertising. You know, what we're getting out of Jeanne and social media and that recognition is just, I cannot speak highly enough of it, but we've got to go off now into more radio and television and that sort of thing, and the timing of it. So, and you know, I was very impressed with the bus as we're looking out at the outlay of particular, maybe some billboards, and maybe I ought to have a conversation with Kay and say, well, that looks like a mobile billboard we can put anywhere we need instead of just stationary, you know. So we're thinking outside the box.
That's good. And if Fennell's here to make sure we close up, but I'll have to say it could be just a bigger like truck or a van you could decorate and park everywhere. And my neighbor does it up the street, so I think we can get creative. I want to say thank you to Dorothy, and she also said she donated too. I'm watching. Some people are making sure they're giving you that love and hug.
Oh, that's excellent.
It's great to see you, and I hope to come out to one of your fabulous events. They're looking so fun. Candidate and Virginia 6 and Jeanne Russell. Great to meet you finally in the video here world, but I will be out your way, Jeanne. And thank you for coming today. It's great.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much.
Yes, great. Thank you. So Fennell, I'm pretty pumped, and the challenges, I'm very excited about getting loud. And I just want to say, well, hopefully we'll hear some loud and proud shouting at the end of this. But I want to so what are your takeaways today?
Well, I'm gonna come and help Ken paint his bus, that's for sure. So when you get that bus, let me know. And I'm happy. I do really good with the paintbrush, so I'm happy to do that.
I'm going to hold you to that.
Well, I love it. I want to make sure before we round up that we thank Michele Hornish for being here. And I want to say, check out her Substack, Small Deeds Done. And she's the executive director of Every State Blue. Also check that out. And friends with our friend, Jess Piper. Awesome. And Reid McCollum, great to see you, Reid. You know, the Progressive Turnout Project, making canvassing seem so fun. I just want to go canvass just because that video made it so agreeable. And lastly, we just saw our candidate in Virginia on Ken Mitchell and sidekick social media manager Jeanne Russell. So with that, Fennell, what are you thinking about your feelings today about the voter, the recipes we want to hear about in the aftermath?
Yeah, so I feel really good. I think this was an amazing show. I hope everybody feels as excited as I do about the potential that we have, the momentum that we have, and we just got to keep on doing something. So if we keep on doing something, we win this thing.
And getting loud, like every action counts. And I'm so excited about next week. I want you all to put it on your calendar. Make sure if you're even in the car, you're going to listen, because next week we're going to have Simon Rosenberg will be here from Hopium Chronicles to talk about that vote early. And remember, next week, it's going to be getting loud and proud at the polls. I make sure Stair, if Stair is in the room, Stair, put in your Action Network map. She has done a lot of work on this Action Network map. We're mapping our early vote. Melody, hopefully you have an event on that map. Hopefully we have D Minor has something on that map. Just make something up, put it on the map. Make sure it's at a poll. We want to make sure that people come out early, vote, and go strong. And this map that we've created through Network Nova and the Virginia Grassroots, let's put it in the chat so people could see how cool it is. And put yourself on the map. And
September 20th, day one.
We're going to have a lot of events this weekend. There's a lot of canvassing going on out in 7 and in Virginia, especially a lot of stuff. But our next guest is going to be Maggie O'Neill, Vote for Your Daughter. A lot of you met Maggie O'Neill. She's doing visually. Talk about being creative. This Vote for Your Daughter kind of toolkit she's going to be making. I am going to do something with that. You can make the friendship bracelets. You can do art with it. And it's all with that Vote for Your Daughter narrative. And I love it. And then lastly, you're excited. Who's your last guest on that? Democracy Forward? Sky Perryman is coming next week. Yeah. And you just saw Sky on the TV yesterday.
I just saw her on TV. So that's pretty exciting because I can be a fangirl really easy.
I know. So I want to say thank you. If you become a Patreon today, you'll get a button in the mail and probably some other cool swag. If you haven't decided, check out our Patreon levels. And if you do decide to be a patron today, you'll get some extra cool swag in the mail. We love our patrons. And also our social media, YouTube. Follow us on the YouTube and all our channels, and subscribe also. We need that. And lastly, you'll get the recap email. No worries here. You'll get the links. It will come later. That's a lot of work, but it comes later. And thank you to the team that makes that happen. We really appreciate you. And the after chat, we're ready to hear from you and our guests about your recipes that work. Right for now?
That's right. So let's go.